The rain came down harder than expected that evening, streaking against the windows of the small cafe tucked between two tall brick buildings on a quiet street in Chicago. Inside, the soft glow of warm lights reflected off the polished tables, and the air smelled faintly of roasted coffee and fresh bread. At the far corner near the window, a man sat alone, nervously stirring his cappuccino even though it had long gone cold. His name was Ethan Walker, a 34-year-old single father who hadn't been on a date in almost 5 years. The storm outside matched the swirl of emotions within him. Anxious, uncertain, but quietly hopeful. He'd met Rachel through an online single-parent community. Their conversations had been genuine. Two tired souls sharing the same language of late-night worries, school lunchboxes, and quiet loneliness. When they agreed to finally meet in person, Ethan had imagined something simple. Laughter, maybe connection. But he hadn't imagined she would walk in looking so fragile, so unsure, and holding the small hand of a little girl who clung tightly to her leg. Before he could even rise to greet her, Rachel's voice broke the silence between them. Her words trembled as she said, "I'm sorry. I had to bring my daughter." The cafe lights caught the faint shimmer of tears she tried to hide. Her little girl, maybe 5 or 6, peeked shyly from behind her coat, clutching a small, stuffed bunny. For a moment, Ethan didn't say anything. Not because he was upset, but because the sight hit him deeper than he expected. That tiny hand holding onto her mother reminded him of his own daughter, Lily, who had once hidden behind his leg in just the same way after her mother left. Finally, Ethan smiled softly and stood up. His reply came gently, carrying the weight of understanding only another parent could know. "You don't need to be sorry." Before we go deeper into this emotional story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of human connection, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us spread more heartwarming stories like this one. Rachel hesitated before taking a seat, her daughter sitting close beside her. She kept apologizing, saying she couldn't find anyone to watch her tonight and didn't want to cancel again. But Ethan shook his head, telling her it was perfectly fine. What he didn't tell her was that he understood the feeling. The constant balancing act of parenting and loneliness, the guilt of trying to find happiness while carrying responsibility on your back. They ordered simple things, grilled cheese for the child, coffee for themselves. At first, conversation was awkward. Rachel's eyes darted toward her daughter, worried she might be bothering Ethan. But to her surprise, Ethan asked the little girl her name. "Emma," she whispered, barely audible. Ethan smiled, telling her his daughter's name was Lily and that she loved bunnies too. That simple sentence broke the wall between them. Emma giggled quietly, showing him her plush toy, and Rachel finally relaxed. As the rain outside softened, the cafe filled with gentle laughter. Not loud, not forced, but warm and real. Ethan shared stories of his life after losing his wife to illness 3 years ago. He told Rachel how hard it was to be both mother and father, how lonely nights could get when his daughter asked, "Daddy, why does Mommy live in the sky now?" Rachel listened quietly, eyes glistening with empathy. Then she shared her own story, about a marriage that ended not in death but in betrayal. Her husband had left when Emma was just a baby, walking out after saying he wasn't ready to be a dad. She had spent the past years building a life from scratch, working double shifts, moving apartments 3 times, just trying to survive. There was no pity between them, only recognition. 2 lives that had been bent, not broken. The evening stretched longer than either expected. Emma, tired from the day, fell asleep in her chair with her bunny resting against her cheek. Rachel looked embarrassed again, whispering that they should go. But Ethan stopped her, placing a hand gently over hers. "You both can stay a little longer," he said. "It's nice." just having company. Rachel smiled softly, her eyes meeting his. For a long time, she had forgotten what it felt like for someone to simply understand without judgment. When the rain finally stopped, Ethan offered to walk them to their car. They stood under the awning of the cafe, the streets glistening under the streetlights. He held his jacket over Rachel and Emma as they ran across the road. It wasn't grand or cinematic, just simple, real kindness. Before getting in, Rachel turned to him. "Thank you for not making me feel like I ruined the evening." Ethan's reply was quiet but firm. "You didn't ruin it. You made it real." Days passed, and what began as a chance meeting turned into something steady. They started seeing each other at parks, playgrounds, and sometimes coffee shops again. Their kids, Lily and Emma, became fast friends. Both single parents found themselves slowly rediscovering joy through the laughter of their daughters. Rachel noticed things about Ethan she hadn't seen in a long time in anyone. The way he knelt down to tie his daughter's shoe, the way he'd patiently listened to her long stories about school or crayons. And Ethan noticed how Rachel's voice softened whenever she spoke to Emma, how fiercely protective yet tender she was. There was strength in her that reminded him that healing didn't always look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it looked like a tired mom showing up every single day, no matter how broken she felt inside. But even as things grew warm between them, Rachel struggled with guilt. She had been left before. She feared being left again. She told herself that Ethan deserved someone with fewer scars, fewer responsibilities. One afternoon, as they sat in the park watching their girls play, she said quietly, "You deserve someone who isn't so complicated." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "Rachel," he said, "we're all complicated. That's what makes us human. You think your past makes you less worthy, but to me, it makes you real." Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. He reached over, brushing one away with his thumb. "Don't apologize for being a mother, or for your past, or for your scars. They're the reason you're strong." From that day forward, Rachel stopped apologizing. She began to believe she deserved kindness too. And Ethan, for the first time in years, began to feel hope blooming again in the quiet corners of his life. Months later, Christmas came around. The city glowed with lights, laughter, and the faint scent of cinnamon drifting from every bakery. Ethan invited Rachel and Emma to spend the evening with him and Lily. The girls built a snowman in the backyard while the two adults set up a small dinner table inside. It wasn't a romantic dinner, just a simple meal shared between people who had become family without realizing it. When the clock struck 9, the girls came running in, cheeks red from the cold, giggling. They wanted to open the small presents placed under the tree. Ethan nodded, smiling as he handed each girl a wrapped box. Inside Emma's gift was a small silver locket shaped like a star. When she opened it, there was a tiny picture of her and her mom inside. Rachel looked at Ethan, speechless. "I thought she might like to carry a piece of you with her," he said softly. That night, after the girls fell asleep on the couch, Rachel stood near the window watching the snow fall. Ethan walked up beside her. Neither spoke for a while. Then Rachel whispered, "I never thought I'd find peace again." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes peace finds us when we stop running from it." She turned toward him then, eyes glistening. "Ethan," she said, "thank you for showing me that love doesn't always have to come with pain." He looked at her, not with passion, but with something deeper. "And thank you," he said quietly, "for reminding me that love can be simple and still be real." Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the world in silence. Inside that small house, two single parents finally found what they'd both been missing. Not perfection, but belonging. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of kindness, of love, of second chances. Please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating stories that bring hope and humanity back into the world. Special request. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever met someone who changed the way you saw love or kindness? We'd love to hear your story. By the end of that winter, Ethan and Rachel were no longer just two parents trying to survive. They had become a team, two hearts that healed together through the laughter of their daughters. Sometimes, the most beautiful stories begin with simple words spoken from the heart. And that night, in a quiet cafe under the rain, all it took were 7 gentle words. You don't need to be sorry.